Well, when you talk about new revenue, my understanding was the couple $1 billion that the legislature is going after is basically all for education of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
So with all of these agencies having to look at making 5% cuts, I don't see any opportunity for them to come back from that. So is there some other source of revenue that's going to help with that?
Well, on the budget plan, their goal is to make sure, absent new revenue, we have a budget that's sustainable going forward. And we've had a problem for the last couple biennia. This isn't new. As we've talked about earlier around the Medicaid budget, we'll probably have to come back on both the tobacco tax discussion as well as the free rider proposal that's out there. The free rider bill is not out yet. That's the one where certain employers who aren't providing enough insurance might be assessed a fee. So we still have those types of smaller issues. As it relates to student success, so we have right now, a lot of people keep talking about this $2 billion number. More money for early learning and K-12 through new revenue will potentially free up other money that's currently being spent in the general fund. So, for example, I think there's a lot of interest in everyone seeing us fully fund Measure 98. Well, that's not doable with the current budget we have. But if there's new revenue, some of the money that is now being spent on Measure 98 could be covered by that new revenue. So you're going to see a dedication, but it may not be things, not 100% that we're not already doing to some degree. So that could free up a little money over in the other side of the budget. Does that make sense?
Okay, so what you're saying is education spending would not go up by a net of the new revenue. It would be some percentage of the new revenue, because some of the new revenue would be it would be covering education activities that are already being paid for, so the general fund that was paying for those education activities can go somewhere else in the budget.
I wouldn't quite go that far. That's true. So maybe 95% of all the new revenue is going towards dealing with our budget. Let me step back. So let's look at the state school fund. We put $100 million more in the budget plan for the state school fund than was in the legislatively determined current service level. $100 million less than the government, but $100 million more than current service level. To make that budget more sustainable, we're probably going to have a portion of the new revenue going to the state school fund. But it's not going to be 100%, right? But it's if you dedicate another $100 million out of the new revenue towards the state school fund, that's going to deal with some of the structural insufficiencies going forward in the overall general fund budget. Because I think the assumption is we're going to keep paying for the state school fund and then all the new revenue is going to go somewhere else. Probably a portion of that new revenue does need to go to the base funding for the state school fund. But that's probably not that much, because most of the money is going to be spent on new targeted investments. So I'm just kind of spitballing this. So let's say it's $100 million for the state school fund in the new pod. That leaves $1.9 billion for all the new investments. And maybe $100 million goes to something we're already spending in general fund, so that frees up a little space on the other side of the budget line. But in general, all the new money is going to go to new things, but not maybe 100% of it, because we have structural insufficiencies in what we're already doing that has to be addressed as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so, pardon me because I wasn't, I've read about the co-chairs framework, but I was actually out of town at training during it. So would $100 million or something buy back the 5%? Because across all those agencies, that's got to be a huge amount.
No, we're still going to have to find, anywhere from 3 to 5% in the current budget without new revenue to balance.
And
remember, the
Medicaid
budget plan is
wouldn't help it.
Well, the budget plan is a starting point.
Sure.
We might have to, maybe we can't set aside an additional 1%, for example.
I'm just trying to understand whether the 5% is something that's going to be enduring at the end of the session, or if not, where you guys are looking for the money to come from for that.
Well, it's enduring in the sense every time you reset the current service level to a lower level, which is what you'd be doing. Let's say you cut 3% across the board at the end of the day when we finish this budget. That's 3% that doesn't roll up. So then you're building in some longer term stability and sustainability in the budget without any new revenue. Because if you spend less this year, less rolls up next year, or less rolls up into the next biennium. And we've been doing that for 2 biennia now. We did cost cutting at the end of the 17 session, we did cost cutting at the end of the 15 session. If you look at the growth in the state budget and the amount of reserves we're doing, we're budgeting much more effectively and conservatively than we did in the previous decade. And we still have a problem. And that's because of demographic growth in certain areas like seniors. That's about, expansion of the health plan and less federal revenue. So there's a combination of things that even with all those efforts, we still have a structural